Last year in the United States alone, $1.3 trillion gone. 45% of consumer spending, nearly half, went toward things people didn't actually want. Now, stop for a second. That includes you. That includes me. So how is that even possible? If you've ever asked yourself that question, this video is for you. If you watch this video all the way through, here's what you'll walk away with. You'll understand exactly how your brain tricks you without you even realizing it. You'll see which conditions, yes, specific conditions, push you toward irrational choices. And once you recognize these patterns, you'll know how to avoid falling into the same traps again. Fair warning though, this video might make you uncomfortable because the mistakes we're about to talk about are going to sound like other people's stories. But every single one of them is ours. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you bought something and then thought, why did I even get this? How many times have you said yes to someone while every part of you was screaming no? Or made a decision that seemed completely logical at the time and ended in disaster? According to research published in 2025, the average person makes roughly 35,000 decisions per day. 35,000! And the vast majority of those happen unconsciously, meaning we're not even aware we're making them. Now, let's talk money. As of 2025, 63% of Americans don't have enough savings to cover a $1,000 emergency expense. And yet, in that same group, 50% admit they spent money last month on something they didn't need. Is that a contradiction? It looks like one, but it's not random. There's a reason for it. And that's exactly where things get interesting. But here's what's truly surprising. These decisions don't come from stupidity. It's actually the complete opposite. Nobel Prize-winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman discovered something remarkable. Our brains are lazy, deliberately lazy. They're built to conserve energy, so they constantly try to compress complex decisions into simple, familiar patterns. This is called System 1 thinking, fast, automatic, and intuitive. System 2 is the opposite, slow, analytical, and exhausting. Which one do you think we rely on most? System 1, always. And here's why that matters. When you're stressed, tired, or rushing, in other words, exactly when you're most likely to make a bad decision, your brain switches to autopilot. And that autopilot doesn't always take you somewhere good. People who don't know this keep thinking of themselves as rational, but here's where it gets really interesting. Let me ask you something. What feels stronger to you? Winning $100 or the fear of losing $100? Research is crystal clear on this. The pain of losing something is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same thing. This is called loss aversion, and it shapes almost every financial decision we make. Here's a concrete example. In 2025, the average return on the S&P 500 was around 12%. But a huge chunk of individual investors sold their positions when markets got volatile and missed that return entirely. Why? Because their brains shifted from how do I grow this to how do I not lose what I have? Think about how rational that sounds. They sold because they were afraid of losing, and by selling, they lost. But fear of loss doesn't act alone. It always has a powerful partner. You walk into a car dealership. The salesperson shows you the most expensive model first, let's say $65,000. Then they say, but take a look at this one, and show you a car for $42,000. How does that feel? Cheap, right? But $42,000 is not cheap. It only feels that way because your brain latched onto $65,000 as the reference point. That first number, the anchor, hijacked your judgment, and everything that followed got measured against it. This isn't just about cars. It happens in salary negotiations, in relationships, even in how hard you think you need to work. the first piece of information shapes the final decision, whether you're aware of it or not. But what about when you're under pressure? That's when things get even more complicated. Something happened in 2021. Millions of people poured money into stocks they knew almost nothing about. Why? Because everyone on Reddit was doing it. GameStop surged roughly 1,700% in a matter of weeks. Then it crashed. And in that process, countless people wiped out their savings. The instinct that whatever the crowd is doing must be right is hardwired into us. It's an evolutionary holdover. There was a time when separating from the group literally meant death. But in the modern world, the herd is often running straight off a cliff, and we keep running right behind them. When all these biases stack on top of each other, what happens? The most dangerous trap shows up right here. Brain imaging studies show that the moment we make a decision, the emotional centers of the brain, especially the amygdala, light up. What that means is we're not actually thinking our way to decisions, we're feeling our way there, and then we build a rational story around it afterward. The decision is already made. We just don't know it yet. This is called emotional reasoning, and it gets triggered most powerfully during specific states: exhaustion, hunger, stress, a brutal workday. A study published in early 2026 found that 68% of American consumers made a purchase immediately following an emotional trigger, and 71% of those same purchases were later described as regrettable. So it's not that we're making bad decisions, we're making decisions at bad times. Now, I'm going to tell you the biggest secret of all. Are you ready? All of these biases, loss aversion, anchoring, herd mentality, emotional decision-making, they're all part of a system. And that system is being deliberately engineered against you. The American marketing industry spent approximately $400 billion on advertising in 2025. The vast majority of that budget was allocated to targeting specific, well-documented psychological biases. Limited stock, loss aversion, originally $2.99, now just $1.99. Anchoring, 10 million people have already bought this. Social proof, this weekend only. Urgency and emotional pressure. There's a psychologist behind every ad, and that psychologist knows your brain's blind spots better than you do. But let me be clear about something. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is just the reality of the marketplace. And knowing this reality protects you. Because once you can see a trap, you're not obligated to walk into it. A 2024 study from Harvard Business School found that when people were made aware of their cognitive biases, their financial decision-making improved by an average of 38%. 38%! Just from awareness alone. And now you have that awareness. Because once you understand why a decision looks irrational, you also see how logical it actually was, given the system it was made inside. And that's the moment you can start working against the system instead of for it. Today, we covered 3 big ideas together. First, our brains use shortcuts to save energy, and those shortcuts regularly steer us in the wrong direction. Second, making those wrong turns isn't a personal flaw. It's the predictable result of evolutionary wiring and environmental conditions. Third, but once you recognize those conditions, you gain power over them. The next time you or someone around you makes what looks like an irrational decision, stop, take a breath, and ask yourself, which bias is active right now? That one simple question changes a lot. If you got something out of this video, I want you to keep coming back to this channel. Every week we put out content just like this: psychology, decision science, behavioral economics. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll know the moment a new video drops. And here's the thing. By following this channel, you're already a little more aware than you were an hour ago. That might sound small,
but the biggest decisions of your life are built on exactly these small moments of awareness. See you in the next one.